Wife got pregnant while my best friend was living with us. But the thing is, I had a secret vasectomy. While my friend was best, the wife became pregnant, lived with us. But the point is, I underwent years of a hidden vasectomy. Back then, I just followed till I had evidence of their affair. Thus, I recently found out that my wife Devin was having a liaison with my best pal Jeff, and me learned this while she was expecting. You might wonder, Ob, but if she's pregnant, how do you know nicely I obtained a vasectomy in my former marriage? So, now my wife, has been fiddling about on me, as she cannot find any method to get pregnancy from some of you and myself. Be thinking, you still have access. Pregnant with a vasectomy? Avoid coming at with that. There is less than 1% the possibility that I got her pregnant, and we've taken tests subsequently to validate that it is not mine, so some background is necessary. Jeff, my closest friend, lately went following an earlier this year. Divorce. This guy grew up with me since we were in grade school, meaning we are essentially brothers. We were the best men at every other's wedding. We attended college, along, and enrolled in the same courses. We eventually joined the police service beside each other. And based on the exact location you acquire, I got married when I was 20, and I was as high as my ex-wife Trish was. School sweethearts. I came from a little town. Hockey star, who everyone knew was heading somewhere. She was this clever, cute, funny daughter of a pastor loved by all. We finally had our daughter. When we were 21 and my son, when we were 24, between the 24, we experienced a miscarriage. Following my son's death, my former wife and I agreed we wanted no more children. Hence, we concluded that I ought to get an ectomy without informing anyone. I felt like I shouldn't have announced it. To the planet, I entered for a basic returned to work after lunch surgery, and nobody was the wiser than my former wife and me. Finally, we drifted away, and we split kindly. It's not that we didn't love. We did, but the love only changed, and she began to live here. Business following, the children in the organization were old enough to be just somewhat more autonomous, and she got relatively successful with that and intended to create the brand more prominent. Hence, she included plenty of time with that, and I remained relatively still. I was enthusiastic about the work I was doing, and I was being used extensively across Canada to instruct and whatnot, so that we both simply floated apart. Yet, we still totally helped one another through the years. I was guiding my ex-wife as well as myself, still extremely wonderful friends, and we see all of us have, and each other is constantly changing. Even shared holidays. Nonetheless, Esh, and Devin were cordial, and they even went and accomplished things. Without me, too, they had it terrific. Hence, this leads me to a connection thus then. Jeff and his wife, we spent time with each other, and we performed Friendsmas thing and a friend offering annually. All spend a great deal of time camping together. We worked closely, and so when he mentioned that he was divorcing from Amy, his wife, hit the friend, team hard, and make every effort to help them in whichever form is required. Still, Amy indeed handed it to Jeff Hart and stated she was going to bring the children to Ontario to be with her. Parents who currently reside there. Thus, unsurprisingly, Jeff was devastated at learning this and made every effort to keep his children here. But unfortunately, she moved there and did bring the children with her, so made it difficult to see him depart. And it was challenging to observe him being handled things, and got his children taken away throughout this period, truly leaned on us. And since they needed to sell the house, Jeff stayed with us for a little period before he landed on his feet once more somewhat. It became slightly more than we would have liked then. Devin had this sort of concept, such that we could remodel the garage and make it a suit so I could comply, and Jeff was quite kind about it and participated actively and devoted a lot of time, turning it his own, whatever it was, a little of annoyance, but I wanted to assist in each method I could. And it improved. Then he stays at our house. At least he was at his own house, but absent. Space, enabling Devin and me to have appropriate alone time, free of concern if Jeff was going to find out if my drift well. Now Devin worked as a momentarily dispatched agent for a little bit. And That's how we got together. The work is genuinely rather tense. Hence, she controlled to stay away for 2 years. And right now, she enjoys a job as a hairstylist. Devin and I got together a few months after the divorce with Trish was settled. We struck. It starts nicely. She is 8. Years more experienced than I am, she claimed to have done. She was indeed without children and wanted none. It was fun, very wild and exciting. We rode our motorcycles and went off on hunting expeditions. She resembled one of the guys, but like a chick, and a chick yearning to acquire down and filthy with you. LOL. That's a terrible justification, yet you understand her. She was entertaining. She was everything I needed. At the moment, our interests are aligned, and we shared numerous similar interests. As she had noted that she did not want any children, she thought fantastic I do not need to fear about telling her. Having a vasectomy, therefore, the subject never surfaced. I know I'm a terrible person. I never informed her I had a vasectomy. However, given the issue of children never strictly coming up, that was sort of it. She was the best stepmother I could have found. Children? And she had often remarked, that was plenty. She was not even the bride. Typing. Until I felt like, yes, I want to spend the rest of my life beside this woman, and it simply seems appropriate. It is not such as she opposed marriage or anything except she expected different. You know, she did not need to get married. She was extremely laid back, and I adore her. About her, we ultimately came to have a nice little personal backyard nuptial in a fire accompanied by BBQ, and it was perfect. It fit us and was all we needed. Necessary, so yes. Soon after we acquired married, Jeff worked through his divorce, was lodging with us presently, blah, blah. We cooperated, yet we lacked the same team, so he worked different shifts. Then I did, and Devin lacked greatly. Schedule also, so many times, Dev and Jeff and I were at home together, alone, and at first I considered it as simply Devin being functional and a great friend. But following even when it most certainly began, I'm strangely writing to her during the day and inquired about her day's events. She would say, "Oh, Jeff, we are only out for lunch," or "Jeff and I are merely running right now." Tasks. I'm like Kay Strange. But then they were seeing movies together, and subsequently they would attend concerts together. And then, back home, I observed small details. Things rubbed me the incorrect way, as he would have. As she was speaking, stroke her arm. She would caress his arm while he made. Her chuckle would dish him food, and she wouldn't put food in front of me. And then she'd bring him up often, just like, "Oh, Jeff," informed me about this. Or Jeff remarked on the funniest thing was I felt like, okay, red flag most definitely aroused my doubts. Then, despite his physical elevation, he was essentially the garage suite they would have imported into the wee hours of the morning. She would be laughing and texting him. Then I'm lying in bed beside her, and truthfully, I'm trying to get anything going. To massage her, or provide something to get in the mood. She wouldn't be. She only keeps contacting him as she is interested. I would just roll over and fall asleep, and she would be texting him at then. Would be sporadic small gifts here and there. Got her bathroom supplies for the bathtub, and in one gift box was a massage. Oil, and discovered after a week that though the bottle had been opened and used, I initially chalked on her not using it. Possibly, she used it for lotion or something. Yet the truth is this oil had a noticeable scent and recall smelling on Jeff a couple of times. I never mentioned anything I was gathering, sort of all of this data and mental notes. Then one day, we lie in bed, late evening, and looks at me, and she reminds me of wanting a baby. And so I am like, what exactly she's like? Based on what I believe we should having a baby. I am like, we decided not to, and she's like, I have lately been thinking, and we ought to have a before we both become too elderly. I'm like Devin Ike. And her like is, what do? You mean you lack knowledge? And I am like, a baby is plenty and requires much of time and effort, and subsequently became enraged at, she and I are not treatable. Your former child. Then I said, I felt we discussed this earlier, and she is unlike we ever indeed did. And I am like I sense was merely an unspoken item. And I believe you mentioned that you were excellent, and acceptable without children. Having been a stepmother, she seems to like this. I'm not permitted to have a change of heart. You won't let me be a mother. And I'm like, whoa, wah. That is not at all what I'm implying here. I'm just stating that we should chat. More on this. Maybe now isn't the best moment. She's like, well, what would make it a suitable moment when you would want speaking about it? I'm like, can we, similar to sleeping on it and discussing it tomorrow, schedule time for this tomorrow? And she became agitated, leaving the room. And yes, I lacked compassion for that. Chance to inform her I had a vasectomy, and I would find it quite impossible. 2. Could you give her a kid unless I went to get? It reversed, and even now, it's not exactly 100%. And something about them seemed simply dubious. Overall, conversation anyhow. I felt it was strange as now all of a sudden, she yearned for a baby she had never shown. Curiosity in anything similar before my alarms are running off. I'm relatively confident I know what transpired, but I have to play. Along here the following day, I slightly go eyes, and I'm like, yes, I am game. Let's create a baby. She jumps right now. For pleasure. And we aim 5 times that day. Then, maybe 1 week later, she hands me this box, and within it is a good pregnancy test. I could have wept. I was stunned. I knew it couldn't have been mine, and I have nothing to say except that I am not an expert. However, could you check 1 week following my please don't believe it works that way otherwise? Tell me whether I'm correct here. The point is, I hunched over, knowing I knew it must not be mine, sweetie. Jeff started watching them after this. Closer, Devin and I had decided not to let everybody know we were expecting right away. But while observing Devin and Jeff interacts, I caught him browsing. Her stomach at the side of my view. I feigned as though I hadn't seen, but he for sure gently massaged her belly in a caring manner. There it was a few weeks following that she informs me she's visiting her doctor for the first tiny test to gauge how far along she was, and Jeff was going to drive her, since he had some running around the vicinity regardless. And I was like, no need. I'm taking time off, since she's short and I want to be there. Grinned and seemed as though you wouldn't have to did it, and I felt as though I was the father. I grinned as I wanted to be there. And she grudgingly smiled and resembled, of course, excellent, of course. We finished heading to the visit, and the doctor does her thing with her and probes. When she believes she is conceived, she tells her the date we conducted the old deed. There's an ultrasonic sound, and subsequently when the doctor returns, she reports being 12 weeks and I need help with to achieve that. And I glance at her. Doc seems to be, this is actual, and her behavior is all shocked and everything. The document is, it sure seems like you have a miracle. And I assumed we would act as I was thrilled not to alert her that I knew nothing I shouldn't have. So we went home, and during our time there, I am still acting. And she seems like, oh, it was. It meant to be. What a miracle I am so fortunate for. Excited, we find ourselves having sex once more that night, and I turned over to nod off. I knew she, even though I had the next day off, had to get up early because she had a wedding to do. I knew that was my chance to pack her, __, down, and lock Jeff out of the S. I knew Jeff also had to get up and go to work, so I did just that. I packed all of her garbage, I stockpiled it into our trailer, and I parked it on the street. I had a spare key to Jeff's suite, so I went in there and packed up his stuff too, and threw it into the same trailer. Then I put this big old lock on it so that he wouldn't get in. So Devin comes home first and sees this trailer park there. I had changed the locks on the doors and the password to the garage so she couldn't get in. She was standing there and she's banging on the front door. I talk to her through our doorbell camera and I tell her that we're done and I know the baby isn't mine. It's Jeff's. And she's like, don't be insane. Why would it be Jeff's? I'm like, you tell me. And she's like, how could this baby not be yours? Like, there's a less than 1% chance. And I know that because I have a vasectomy. And she dropped her purse and her bags onto the ground. She stood there in disbelief. And she's like, well, let me explain. And she starts trying to babble on and on. And I'm like, save it. I know it's not mine. And I'm like, we're done. It's over. I was nice enough to pack the trailer for you get out of here. And then she calls someone. And I'm guessing it's Jeff, because then he shows up in a matter of minutes in his patrol car. He sees what's happening, and he sees the lock on the garage suite. He tells me that I'm losing my mind and that the kid couldn't possibly be his. And I'm like, I'll believe it when I see a paternity test edit. People have been asking how she never knew and how she didn't suspect not getting pregnant before. Well, she was on birth control pills for a past, or so she told me. Supposedly, she was in the process of swapping pill brands and just so happened to get pregnant with Jeff's baby. Lousy timing. Not only that, but she had this thing against Wellman juice, to put it lightly. She was absolutely repulsed by it. She refused that I ever finished in her, and she rarely ever pleased me in other ways because the sight of it disgusted her. I won't go into details, but yeah, update. So getting divorced again. Another failed marriage. It feels like an absolute dump. But what can you do amid the divorce? Devin did end up getting a paternity test, and it only confirmed what I had believed the baby is Jeff's. And I guess he knew all along and was willing to play along and thought that he could just live in the garage suite forever and raise his baby as Uncle Jeff from afar. A buddy of mine did me a huge favor and got Jeff transferred to a small northern town, literally in the butt. __. Nowhere. Devin, I guess, followed him up there. She was just trying to pretend that I impregnated her so that I didn't catch on to the affair she was having with Jeff. But it turns out my little secret snip saved me from raising a kid that wasn't my own by the time she realized she was pregnant, though it was a bit late. Trish and I talk every day. She checks in on me, and she's an absolute sweetheart. I'm spending a lot of time with my kids and just trying to get by and be the best dad that I can be now. On to the next story. To wife. Story 2. Of 20 years, asked for a hall pass to sleep with someone else. But then I caught her on a date with him, so I sent his wife roses with the restaurant name my wife, and I have been together for 20 years. We met in our first year of high school, and we have been together ever since she and I both lost our virginity to one another. We went to prom together, and we even went to the same college after graduation. We got married right after we graduated from college, and we settled down to start our life together. Having a family was always something we were looking forward to. So once we had good jobs, we decided to fast forward about 11 years. And we have 2 kids. We own our own home, and we are on a fast track to retiring early so we can travel and do all of the things we never had the chance to. I thought that we were living the dream life. All of that came crashing down when my sister-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was my wife's best friend, and she took it very hard. She was with her every step of the way while she was fighting as best as she could. But in the end, she passed away. It was a huge blow to the entire family, myself included. It's such a cliche, but she was just a beam of light in the world. My wife took it harder than anyone else, and my sister-in-law was who my wife would go to when she needed to talk about anything. They would go shopping together, and they knew everything about each other. I was there for my wife while she grieved the loss, and I helped her get over the worst time of her life. After about 6 months in the morning, my wife started to get back to herself. She had all of my sister-in-law's journals and her notebooks, and she read through all of them while she was grieving. I couldn't even begin to process the types of emotions she must have been feeling, so I just tried to be supportive and lend an ear when she needed it. One thing that got to my wife was feeling like she hadn't done anything with her life. Her sister was taken way too soon. And through the journal entries, my wife realized that her sister felt like she didn't get to do enough in her life. I guess when my wife read all of that, she thought that her sister would have wanted her to do the opposite. She told me that she had been inspired to start living. She wanted to travel and go skydiving and enjoy the life that she had while she had it. I wholeheartedly agreed with it. That's why I have been working 60 hours a week since I graduated from college so we could try to retire early in the next few weeks. She started doing more things. For example, she started taking pottery classes because she'd always been interested in it. She had been teaching herself how to rock climb because she wanted to free climb, and she even scheduled a bungee jumping excursion for her and our son. She seemed to be leaning into this new lifestyle. I didn't think anything of it. I was happy for her because she was recovering from the loss of her sister. One night, after she came home from the climbing gym, she was acting off before that. She had been very upbeat and excited about everything while she took on this new lease on life after dinner. When the kids were in their rooms, she pulled me out to the patio, where we shared a couple of glasses of wine and looked at the stars At the end of our conversation, she brought up the possibility of both of us having a hall pass. For those of you that don't know a hall pass, in a a monogamous relationship is a one-time opportunity for both of the partners to have sex with someone outside of the relationship. I was utterly shocked by what she had suggested. It felt like it came out of nowhere. So I asked her about why was she bringing it up. She assured me that she loved me, but she felt like she might have been missing out on a part of her life because she had only ever been with me. She tried to say it in a way where I wouldn't be hurt, but it was impossible not to feel horrible when she said that I told her that I wasn't supportive of the idea she and I had been married for 20 years, and I didn't understand why it was a problem. All of a sudden, I didn't want to sleep with anyone else, and I wasn't okay with her sleeping with anyone else. We were about to go back inside, but I stopped, and I asked her if there was someone she had been interested in sleeping with. She was hesitant to tell me the truth, but after a few moments, she told me that there was another person who went to the climbing gym that she was attracted to. She told me that he had always been flirty, and recently he asked her out for drinks. I was assured that she said no, and that she would tell him that she was married. But I still went to bed that night with a sour taste in my mouth. It took a few days for me to come to terms with what she had suggested. I was unbelievably hurt by it. But after some time, I forgave her, and we carried on as if the cover's action never happened. After a week or so, she told me that the climbing gym offered a class to start working outdoors, and that she wanted to sign up for it one Saturday. She went out early in the morning with the class. At least, that's what I thought was happening. Our daughter had been entering those years where she started lying to us about where she was going so she could go to parties and hang out with friends we disapproved of, so we told her to leave her location on the Snapchat map so we could verify she was where she said that. The same afternoon, our daughter was supposedly going over to a friend's house, so I checked the maps to make sure she wasn't lying. Everything was good on our daughter's end, but I noticed that my wife's avatar was in the heart of the city. I was a little confused because I had been told that she was going to a park about 30 minutes outside of the city. I zoomed in on the location and saw that she was at a bar. I tried to rationalize it like she was hanging out with some of the other people from the climbing gym after they got back from their climb, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut that I couldn't ignore. I remembered what she had said about the guy from her climbing gym asking her to go out for drinks. I didn't think it was that far of a stretch to wonder if she was there with him. I was home. Alone in the bar that she was. It only happened to be about a 15-minute walk from the house, so I grabbed the dog and we took a walk. I kept my eyes on the map every so often to make sure she was still there, and she wasn't leaving. When I got to the bar, I looked in through the windows, and I saw my wife sitting at a table with a man. They were both leaning close together and smiling from ear to ear as they chatted. The man reached across the table and grabbed my wife's hand, and my wife let him, of course, hand-holding. It isn't necessarily cheating, but it was an indication that maybe there was something more going on. I went home before my wife saw me there, and I waited for her to get back. The entire time I waited. I didn't know if I was going to confront her about it or try to dig around on my own. She came home, and before she even said anything to me, she went right to the shower. I tried to grab her to have a conversation, but she just told me that she was gross and sweaty from climbing. That solidified in my head that something happened while she was with that man. She had dropped her gym bag down near our bed, and I noticed that her phone was still inside. I pulled it out and looked through it to see if I could find any information about who that man was. I searched for the name of the bar in her text messages, and I found a chat between her and an unsaved number. I scrolled back to the beginning of the conversation, which happened to be about a week before. She asked me about the hall pass. I skimmed through the rest of the messages looking for keywords that would indicate an affair. Eventually, I found a few exchanged pictures and some explicit messages, and then I saw the plans for them to get together at the bar. They even came up with a lie to tell me and his partner together. I had no idea who that guy was, but I was able to find out by looking through the climbing gym social media. They had posted a few pictures with some of the clients, and he was clearly in one. He was tagged in it and everything. I did some digging and found out that he was married to a newborn baby. I was disgusted by what I saw. Hurt doesn't even begin to describe the pain that I felt I had been with my wife for 20 years. And she was willing to throw all of that away because she wanted to sleep with another man. I was furious, and I was so disgusted by the foul actions both of them had done. At the end of their message chain, with no context, was the name of a restaurant with a date. In time, a week had passed since I discovered my wife was cheating on me, and I had come up with a plan to catch her the ACT. While I was thinking about it, I realized that the wife of her, the affair partner, deserved to know as well. When the day of the meeting was supposed to take place, I sent his partner's wife a dozen roses with the information for the restaurant on the card. I hoped that it would be a way to trick her into thinking he had a surprise plan for her. I waited outside the restaurant, and I saw her head toward it. I followed her inside, and we both noticed our partners holding hands at the same time. She rushed right over to him and started yelling at him in front of everyone. The wife, was shocked to see me, but she jumped up and tried to tell me that it wasn't what it looked like. Then I asked her to explain the text messages, and she went silent. I told her that I would be ending everything between us, and that she could expect to see me in court. We spent the next 8 months in a divorce battle over what happened. The issue that we had was custody. We both wanted primary custody of our children, but in the end, we were given joint custody. I was able to keep the house, and she was entitled to no spousal payment from me. Her affair partner was also divorced, and he was forced to pay child support and alimony to his ex, my ex, and I only recently finished the divorce proceedings and were finally done with each other. I honestly don't know what to do. From here, I had only been with one woman, and she stabbed me in the back, and I'm not sure how to move forward.